Hi everybody, this is B, and today I'm talking about embodiment. What is it? Who does it? Who knows how to teach it? Who knows how to do it? How dangerous it is, and that it can go wrong at times. So I saw a video from a colleague, well, former colleague I would say today, and I saw the offering that she gave. And of course, I'm not here to tell you whether I'm right or I'm wrong. You know, I still don't believe that I am the all-knowing oracle, but I do feel that I have enough experience in what we're doing here in Glastonbury to perhaps try and explain some of the things in the way that I see them. And it is always about how I see them, right? So what is embodiment? Well, in truth, it is possession. It is a form of possession, and it is taught to priestesses, has been taught to priestesses since the dawn of time. And basically, the priestess removes her own personality, her own id, in a way, and allows the goddess to come into her. And it's not just the goddess. If you are a vessel, if you know how to do it, if you have been trained to do it, trained to hold the energies, then you can have anyone come through. And very often I say to my students, it is a bit like you have a taxi light over your head. The beings that are in the realms are looking for a light, looking for an opening, looking for somebody who's accessible so that they can bring their messages through. And there's quite a few of us. And I think there are different levels. So for me, there are definitely different levels of embodiment, of oracling. It is not one size fits all, because as we are different capabilities, you know, we all have two legs, but not all of us are Hussein, whatever his name was, I can't remember, Hussein Bolt. So there are different levels of competency, like in every other job, in every other profession. There are different levels of competencies. Only here we have to be a bit careful, because if you are allowing a being into your body, it can go drastically wrong. And there was a video on Facebook this morning by a very, very good friend of mine who was talking about a video that had been posted on Facebook about somebody who came to Avalon, came to Glastonbury, and decided to start messing around with our sacred sites and decide to do silly things. And when you know what to look for, you can actually see that that person is possessed. They've opened themselves up to something, and that being is not a good being. So we have to be really careful when we open ourselves up to these energies, to these beings, to these entities even, that we come with good intent, that we know exactly who and who cannot come into our house. It's a bit like your house at home, you know, you choose who you want to come in, and you choose how long they stay. You say goodbye when it's time to go. Well, most of the time anyway. So there are different levels, as I said, and I want to make it a bit easier for people, and I don't want to give too much away, because the moment you talk about something here on Facebook, you know somebody's going to steal what you're saying. So in my opinion, there are different levels, and let's make it a model that most of you can understand. So there is the basic embodiment. The basic embodiment is when the goddess comes into your body, when you open yourself up for the goddess to come into your body, and then she speaks through you. She speaks through you. And embodiment often means that the words that come through are not understood by you whilst the goddess is in your body. What she does for you is she does a bit of healing, a little bit of cleaning, a little bit of obstacle removing, while you're busy, you know, while your body is busy speaking her words. And that's quite rightly so, because I don't think that we as priestesses should really be privy to the information that the people who are coming to the goddess are given. It is a personal message, so we don't need to know. And then there is an intermediate and an advanced level of embodiment. Now, one of the reasons why I have a real issue with people pretending that they can teach anyone embodiment within a couple of days or something like that is the level of danger that is associated with that. And I mentioned the video just now. It's because the person that was posting this video, I won't name any names, he was obviously possessed, and he was obviously, and we see this in Avalon a lot. If you know what you're looking out for, you can actually see the being behind the eyes of the person you're speaking to. It is the freakiest thing. It is also one of the things how we, when we do the training, make sure that the goddess has left your body, because the goddess loves being embodied. She loves being able to touch people, to hold people, to stroke people's hair, to maybe kiss their cheek. She is really a tactile kind of person. So it really is that kind of thing. But it is also possible that if you're not sure how to protect yourself completely, if you're not calling in the goddess, if you haven't got a connection with your guides and helpers, and that has to be it's like a steel core connection. It's not a tenuous little thread, silver thread that goes out. No, it's got to be a really core deep connection with your team, because if you don't have that, then there are entities in this realm. If you believe that the goddess can come through you, you also have to believe that other beings can come through you and come into you. And what we call, there are certain levels of possession, there's certain levels of beings that come into you, and what I always call a pilot fish, so to speak, can often come in during embodiment if you're not completely connected. Hence, when we do embodiment training, it lasts a whole year. Every week we go a step further. And before that, it happens in the second year. And before that, we are putting the basics down, the foundations down. If you think about it, if you want to be a plumber, you have to do 3 years of proper apprenticeship. You have to do proper apprenticeship. So, you know, especially the plumbers who also do electrical work, you can't just do something in 2 days and say, well, I'm a plumber and I can do all of this. Well, you can't, because you may be faced with a situation that you don't know anything about. So embodiment has to have a proper foundation. The foundation is in your connection with goddess, in your connection with your team. The foundation is also in having belief in yourself, feeling the strength and the power coming through you. There is loads of things that you learn to do, and it's a beautiful, amazing process. It's so fabulous, it really is. And when Ceridwen, for example, comes and leaves my body, she always leaves behind this ecstasy, this joyfulness. Lilith leaves behind a little bit of naughtiness. I've got to be really careful when I've embodied Lilith that I don't open my mouth and say things that might shock the heck out of people. I did that in Chalice Well a couple of months ago, and it was not pleasant. So, you know, I made a bit of a fool of myself because I said something and several people were like, what? What has she just said? Because it was so apropos of nothing. So just Lilith chatting, you know. So exactly that. It's really, even when you are a very professional and very trained person, every now and then the little danger is there. But I really love Lilith, and I don't mind her doing that because she appeals to the naughtiness in myself, and I like that. I love that sort of thing. So the intermediary and the advanced is then based on that, and those are things that are so out of this world, and I mean out of this mundane everyday world, that it can blow your mind. I've just done that with the second spiral students on the Priestess of Ceridwen course, and it is a small group that I did that with. You can't do that with a massive group. It's got, because as a trainer you have to be really careful that everybody's okay. And it was a really successful session, and we actually recorded it so that we can pass it on to other priestesses of Ceridwen, because there were a lot of things that were said about our tribe, for our tribe, yeah? But I've embodied beings that I wouldn't personally call into my body, and this is in my healing. So if you are a healer, if you're a soul healer, very often you have beings coming through your body, and that's another level of embodiment, because it is not that you are prepared and called in. When you do a healing, of course, you ground and center, you call in the goddess for protection, you create your protection sphere, but then what comes forward is the beings that are there for the person you're healing. So, you know, I'm not a Christian. I don't do angels. I love the fact that people who know me always laugh about that, because although I don't do angels, angels do me, apparently. So I was healing this lady, and I could feel this pain in my back. It was really, really painful. And I thought maybe I bent over the couch a bit too much or something like that. But actually, suddenly I felt a cracking in my shoulder blades, and I saw these massive wings coming out of my back in my mind's eye. I was like, what on earth is this? So there's like a dichotomy. There's like me, the physical being is healing this woman, whilst the psychic being, you know, and there's always that dichotomy, that psychic being is being, you know, taken over by what happens to have been the angel Gabriel. And I turned around, well, not literally, in my mind's eye, I said, I don't do angels. And he said, honey, don't worry about it. I won't be here long. I'm here for her, not for you. And that was it. And he did what he had to do. And then he came out, he stood at the end of the bed and he said, thank you very much for your service. And if you ever need me, you know who to call. And that was that. It was fantastic. Weird, but fantastic. And so that was sort of a lesson for me, an experience for me to know that as a vessel, we don't choose who comes in for the highest good of the person that we're dealing with. And that is the same as, you know, when you're doing embodiment and you're calling in a particular goddess, there sometimes can be, oh, hold up for a second, there's actually this goddess for that person. But again, you know, it takes experience, it takes, you know, I've done embodiment in the Glastonbury Goddess Temple for years. I mean, 8-9 years. And I embodied every single goddess of the cycle. It isn't, oh, you're a priest of Caradwen, so you can only embody Caradwen. If you are an embodiment, you can do anyone. Whatever the person needs that is with you, you can do it. Anyway, I will say, though, from the danger point of view, I had an experience with somebody who wouldn't listen to me. Now, I don't usually allow people not to listen to me. You know, those of you who've seen my videos, you know I'm a bit strict. I am the old type of teacher because I want to keep you safe. And this person didn't want to listen to me. And there was several other people as witness, and I told that person, you're not safe yet, you're not ready yet, you can't open yet, wait a minute. And that person, arrogance will kill you, that person decided not to listen to me. So what happens? Something comes in that is not meant for the highest good, because she wasn't connected, she wasn't protected by Caradwen. Because if you don't have that energy, then it can be dangerous. I keep saying that. So what happened? It took 3 very experienced priestesses 4 hours to get that being out of that person. And what did I learn from that? The next time, if somebody isn't ready, you don't include them. This is not exclusion because I don't like somebody or somebody has pissed me off. This is exclusion for your own good. So now, when I feel that people are ready, I will allow them to start working with bringing the embodiments in. And you know, I'm a very safety girl. I'm a safety girl. I'm very safe because I have seen so much of what can happen and what can go wrong. I've seen people be completely discombobulated after treatments. I've seen people after ceremonies. I've seen people completely discombobulated and not present in this plane. And there was nobody that helped them. There could be no, and this can go on for months. So no, I just no, that's a no from me. So I want people to be safe. So that was my decision then as a teacher, that unless you're ready, unless the goddess says, yep, she's okay, we are all right, and Caradwen tells me, you know what? Hold up, she needs to do a bit more work, she needs to go on a bit. Embodiment is a huge responsibility. You're responsible for other people's wellness, what you say or what the goddess says to them. Because I have seen people in embodiment and I know it's not the goddess speaking. I know that, and it's not a judgment, it is a word of warning. Because you don't know, we don't know, as people don't know what's going on in these people's lives. What happens usually is when we do the embodiment in the goddess temple, we are sitting there as embodiment, we don't know who's going to come up to us. It could be somebody we know, it could be, but most of the time, these people, we don't know them. Same with the oracling, yeah? If we're in oracling in goddess house, we don't know. Sometimes it's somebody we know, but then that matters not, because it's not we who are speaking to them, it's the goddess who's speaking to them. So it's that, you know, what we say has to come from goddess. If we try and fake it, embodiment is not a fake it till you make it situation. If you say something and that person is in crisis and you say the wrong thing, you are responsible for their safety. You're responsible for their happiness, for their wellness. That's your responsibility, because they think they're talking to Goddess. And if you haven't got Goddess in you, if you're not embodying the Goddess, you may say something that is not the right thing, okay? So when you are going on all these lovely short courses, be aware that it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. It is not something that is innate in human beings. The priestesses of old would have been practicing since they're 5 years old. They would be learning, they would be practicing since they were 5 years old. Yeah? And that's why I say to people, you can't do that. If you do that, you're responsible for everything that happens, that goes wrong, maybe that goes right. And I find that we have an ethical and moral responsibility as priestesses, as teachers, as guides, as healers, to make sure we keep people safe. So the other embodiments are very different and very interesting, and I would love to talk to them a bit more, but I can't, sorry. It's sub rosa, as Goddess says. So hold on to yourselves. Choose wisely. Choose the right teacher. When you're thinking about doing a course, ask for an interview. I always say this. Ask for an interview with the person and see who they are. Because they can be the nicest person possible. I'm a nice person, you know, most of the time, not always. But I'm a nice person. But I'm not always the right teacher for everybody. And I feel that, and they feel that. And there's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, I really enjoyed our conversation, but I don't think you're for me. And I do this often with people in healings, you know, or I see people for funeral celebrancy or end-of-life work, you know, especially end-of-life work. If you're walking with somebody at the end of life, you can't guarantee that that person's going to be going in 6 months, in 10 months, in, 3 years. I have a client, and I only ever take one client, and it's really funny. I mean, it's not funny. It's great. I love it. I have a client that I've had for 5 years. Why have I had her for 5 years? Because in 2020, she was told she had 3 months to live, and she engaged my services. I only ever take the one person. And then in 21, she was still there, and we connected, we did her end of life plan, and I know we're going off a topic a bit. And then 2022, continuous contact. And I said to her, this is great, She said, my husband doesn't think so. He was already spending the inheritance. I don't believe that was true, but she's still around. They found a different treatment. She's still ill. She is getting worse progressively, but she is still around. And as long as she's still around, I'm there for her. And that means that I commit deeply to the person that I'm working with. And that is exactly what you must do if you do the work of a priestess. So commitment and ethics and morals and all of that are old-fashioned values. But as a priestess in the community, they are exactly the values that you need in order to do good, in order to be there for people. So I'm going to stop blathering on now. I hope I made things a little bit clearer. We are going to drop another video at the end of the week on our YouTube channel, and that one is going to be about soul midwifery, because we are going to start the soul midwifery course soon again. And I just wanted to again clarify what we do in difference to what other people do. And it's not about division or separation. It's just not every soul healer, not every soul midwife does the same thing. We are a very fluid bunch of people, and we specialize. Some of us specialize in certain things. Other people, they do everything. They're a jack of all trades, and it's all good. It's all for the good. But you know when something is right for you. You know when something is right for you, and you also know when something isn't right for you. And now I'm going to get out of this absolute boiling hot little temple of mine, because the sun is shining, and I hope that you are having a fantastic week. Blessed be.